In the Netherlands, the International Court of Justice holds hearings on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem since 1967. In Palestine, a United Nations report warns of increasing risk of children's death due to high levels of malnutrition. And in Venezuela, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Caracas on his second stop of his Latin American tour with the aim of strengthening relations and cooperation with the region. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The International Court of Justice, based in The Hague City, holds a hearing on the legal consequences of Israel's occupation of the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem since 1967. More than 50 countries, including nations denouncing the Israeli genocide against Palestine, such as Cuba, China, Russia, and Egypt, and Tel Aviv allies such as the United States, will present arguments before the judges. On the next days, South Africa, Algeria, Saudi Arabia, Brazil, Bolivia, and Belize are expected to take the stand to present their conclusions. In this context, the South African representative denounced that Israel is subjecting the Palestinian population to a system of apartheid in violation of international law. Vusi Madonsela, South African ambassador to the Netherlands, condemned Israel's apartheid against Palestinians and called for its immediate end.
We as South Africans sense, see, hear and feel to our core the inhumane discriminatory policies and practices of the Israeli regime as an even more extreme form of the apartheid that was institutionalized against black people in my country, coincidentally from the year 1948, and which lasted until 1994. Moreover, it is clear that Israel's illegal occupation also been administered in breach of the prohibition of the crime of apartheid. It is indistinguishable from settler colonialism, which has no place in the 21st century.
On Tuesday, the United Nations report highlighted that in Palestine, the death of several children due to high levels of child malnutrition puts the population of the Gaza Strip on alert. In this sense, after 20 weeks since the beginning of the genocide perpetrated by Israel, the report asks that the scarcity of food and drinking water seriously affected the nutritional state of thousands of Gaza children, victims of the siege of the Tel Aviv regime. According to figures presented by the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees, in the Near East, 1 out of every 6 children under 2 years of age in the north of the enclave suffers from acute malnutrition. On the other hand, the entity also assured that before the beginning of the conflict, lack of weight in Gaza was uncommon. However, with the passing of the weeks and with the increase of aggressions, it has dangerously increased. Palestinian firefighters intervened at the scene of an Israeli attack in Rafah in southern Gaza Strip on Monday. Deadly fighting broke out in Gaza on Monday after Israel warned that it would continue its offensive during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, including in the Rafah area in the far south. Global concern has grown over the fate of 1.4 million Palestinians who have been forced to seek refuge in Rafah near the border with Egypt, enduring shelling and severe food shortages in overcrowded tents and makeshift shelters. Overnight attacks and fighting in Gaza killed more than 100 Palestinians, mostly women and children, bringing the death toll to more than 29,000, according to the Gaza Health Ministry, where fighting was heaviest in Han Yunis, north of Rafah. In Lebanon, a security source announced that 2 Israeli attacks on the town of Gaziyeh near the southern city of Sidon wounded 8 people on Monday. While the Israeli army claimed to have attacked Hezbollah weapon storage facilities, the national news agency assured that a vehicle had been attacked and that ambulances had been rushed to the scene. The Lebanese military movement, Hezbollah, and the Israeli Defense Forces have been exchanging fire almost daily across the border since conflict broke out between Israel and Hamas on October 7th. At least 269 people have been killed since then on the Lebanese side. According to information published on Monday by the newspaper Le Monde, Israel was definitely excluded from the African Union. The information comes after the African Union expelled last Tuesday from its headquarters an Israeli delegation that intended to participate in the 37th African Summit in Addis Ababa. In return, it gave the spotlight to the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority, Mohammed Shtayyeh, who demanded sanctions against Israel for genocide. He also called on the African Union to raise its voice to demand the immediate cessation of Israeli aggression, especially its operations against Gaza, where more than 29,000 people have been killed. The African leaders condemned the Israeli offensive as the most flagrant violation of international humanitarian law, in the words of the chairman of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki Mahamat, who accuses Israel of wanting to exterminate the inhabitants of Gaza. The president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, took part in the annual summit of the African Union in Ethiopia. There, he accused Israel of committing genocide and compared Israel's actions to Adolf Hitler's campaign to exterminate the Jews.
What is happening in the Gaza Strip with the Palestinian people has no parallel in other historical moments. In fact, it existed when Hitler decided to kill the Jews.
President Lula da Silva also referred to the indifference of the leaders of the G7 countries and ratified the claim of his administration and the international community that what is happening in Gaza is genocide.
It is very funny when I see the rich world announcing that it will stop contributing to the humanitarian aid for the Palestinians. I am left wondering what is the side of this political conscience of these people and how big is the heart of solidarity of these people who are not seeing that in the Gaza Strip there is no war, there is a genocide going on.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived on Tuesday at the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, this being his second stop on his tour around the Latin American continent. During the visit, the Russian emissary will hold diplomatic meetings with his Venezuelan homologue counterpart, Ivan Gil, President Nicolás Maduro, and Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. On the eve of the visit, Lavrov emphasized that the working agenda in the South American country includes the development of the strategic partnership and various joint projects in the areas of trade, investment, and culture. It is expected that during the talks they will also agree on the date of the Venezuelan president's next trip to the Russian nation, as announced in previous statements. Previously, the Russian foreign minister held a bilateral meeting with Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel during his official visit to Havana. The Cuban president thanked Lavrov and the Russian Federation for the empathy shown in the face of the difficulties the Caribbean island is experiencing. For his part, the Russian foreign minister said that during the meeting decisions were taken to strengthen mutual cooperation on the economic and commercial levels. He also announced that given the growing number of Russian tourists in the island, the options of direct flights between Moscow and Havana will be expanded. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stressed the importance of Cuba as a strategic partner of Moscow in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean.
Cuba is our partner, a very important ally in the region of Latin America and the Caribbean. We are satisfied with the character of our relations, of our dialogue at all levels, including the highest levels between Parliament and also between the respective ministries of the two countries.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said they have maintained their interest in increasing cooperation and investment in the largest Antillean island.
We have established our position to increase cooperation, mutual investments. Some time ago, we have taken a number of decisions that have formed the legal basis of our interaction. And the most important in this regard is the Russian-Cuban Commission for Scientific and Technical Cooperation. We have established the interest of both sides to hold another meeting of the organization in the coming months.
In Venezuela, Attorney General Tarek William Saab presented this Monday the advances in the Brazalete Blanco case. The Attorney General pointed out that this terrorist act intended to end the life of President Nicolas Maduro. Saab reported that those responsible intended to attack the 21st Army Brigade in Táchira and capture 482 rifles, 51 pistols, and 10 shotguns from the arms park. He also detailed that the evidence found at the time of the arrest of citizen Angelo Heredia incriminates Rosillo San Miguel of being involved with the case. Another of those arrested was Guillermo Enrique Cerza Cierro, and in his home, authorities found a military operation order where he explained the whole plan and also mentions Rosillo San Miguel.
The executors, according to what we have found so far, had calculated that the weapons that they were going to capture, according to their totally criminal plans, consisted of 482 rifles, 100 rifles, 51 pistols, and 10 shotguns. In this case, as we reported at the time, the detention of a true terrorist criminal for all that is his background. I mean Angelo Heredia, which has allowed to reveal who was involved with him in this plot.
In Venezuela, the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, reaffirmed the willingness of the national government to dialogue with all political sectors of the country without prejudice, based on respect for the Constitution and the Venezuelan state.
We're not here to discriminate against any factor in the life of Venezuelans. We're not here to reject talks with absolutely no one. On the contrary, let them all come to look for areas of common ground. Only one group cannot come here, the violent ones, those who violate the Constitution, those who don't abide by the decisions of the Supreme Court of Justice, or the National Electoral Council, or of the executive power, or of the legislative power. All the rest, those who want to come to confront ideas as adversaries and not as enemies, but within the framework established by the Constitution, would be welcomed.
In El Salvador, leaders of the Farabundo Martí Front for National Liberation announced that they will request the nullity of the electoral process after registering and documenting different irregularities during the electoral and legislative elections. According to the FMLN, the result of the final scrutiny of the elections held on February 4th does not reflect the national reality and was the outcome of a series of changes to the electoral rules to continue concentrating power. The FMLN added that its objective is to give a voice to the most vulnerable Salvadoran families and to conquer more rights for the population. Previously, the opposition parties, Vamos and Arena, had also announced their interest in presenting such an appeal for nullity. Former President of Argentina, Cristina Fernández, estimated that a 57.4% poverty rate affecting the South American country, according to a study by the Argentine Catholic University, leaves the nation in a worse situation than 20 years ago. When the index was 54%, the Peronist leader considered the graph of the Observatory of the Social Debt of the UCA, which reflects the highest percentage of poverty since the historical series began in 2004, shows something more than a massive setback. This situation occurred especially from 2018 when the government of Mauricio Macri went into debt in dollars by borrowing from the International Monetary Fund, estimated Fernández Kirchner. The report referred to by the former president reflects an increase in poverty of 7.9 percentage points between December and January from 49.5 to 57.4%. In Chile, temporary housing was provided on Monday to families who lost all their belongings in the forest fires that occurred during the first days of the month in Valparaiso region. The mayor of Villa Alemana, one of the most affected communities, declared that 107 houses were affected by the flames. On Monday, 12 families of the place were benefited with a temporary housing until the definitive reconstruction works begin. Regarding the rest of the victims, Toledo said that the process will be different because they are not owners of the lots where they had built their houses. The government proposed to deliver a temporary voucher for the payment of rents or accommodation in a hotel. This last one is destined in particular to pregnant women or elderly people. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. The Moroccan Armed Forces reported the rescue of 141 migrants aboard a boat heading towards Spain's Canary Islands. Among the rescued migrants, there were 3 minors and 2 women. The rescue operation, which started on February 10th from Mauritania, lasted more than 15 hours due to bad weather. After the recovery of the makeshift vessel, Moroccan authorities took the migrants to the port of Dakhla, where they were handed over to the police for the necessary formalities. The United Nations World Food Programme warned that at least 25 million people are struggling with soaring rates of hunger and malnutrition as the crisis in Sudan sends shockwaves around the region. The UN agency said thousands of families are being displaced and forced across borders in Chad and South Sudan each week, adding to already dire humanitarian situations in both countries and creating the world's largest displacement crisis. In South Sudan, families fleeing Sudan now make up 35% of those facing catastrophic levels of hunger, despite only accounting for 3% of the population. There are 18 million acutely food insecure people within the war-torn country, and around 3.8 million Sudanese children under 5 years old are malnourished.
We came by bus. It took us 2 days to reach here. We came from Sudan because of the war. We came to look for a place to stay and settle. What we need is food. The immediate support we need is to eat to be able to survive.
For his part, World Food Programme East Africa Regional Director Michael Dunford described the difficult conditions facing this crisis.
People are leaving Sudan, fleeing Sudan because of the war, because of the conflict, and they're ending up here where WFP and other agencies are providing basic support. But it's an extraordinarily challenging circumstances. It's 40 degrees here today. People, as you see, arrive with very little, if anything at all. They're being registered, they're being given basic support, and then they're being asked to move further into South Sudan.
In Turkey, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan welcomed his Azerbaijani counterpart Ilham Aliyev, who is making his first official visit after the February 7th presidential elections. At the presidential palace, both heads of state offered a press conference following private meetings. For the first time last year, the total trade volume between the two countries reached $7.5 billion. President Ilham Aliyev said that Turkey is a country that nowadays has a voice all over the world. Earlier, Aliyev and his accompanying delegation visited the Ataturk Mausoleum, which houses the mausoleum of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, founder of the Republic of Turkey. Switzerland's biggest carnival kicked off in the early hours of Monday as costume revelers lit up the dark streets of Basel with many lanterns dedicated to AI and climate change. The 3-day event, one of Europe's best-known carnivals, transforms the city streets into a river of painted lanterns, colorful masks, and creative costumes, flowing to the sound of pipes and drums. Tens of thousands of people got up before dawn to watch the lantern-lit Morgenstrack procession, in which some participants wore lanterns on their heads. At 4 a.m. local time, the lights were turned off in Switzerland's third biggest city, given the forward march order to set off in the local dialect of German. Many chose the topic of climate change, although artificial intelligence, fake news, the 150th anniversary of the Basel Zoo, the movie Barbie, and wars around the world were also on the agenda.
Well, soon it's going to be Morgenstreich. This means that the light will go dark in the whole of the city. And short before that, we actually start the march by shouting Morgenstreich forwards march, and on that the light should go down and everyone starts with the same march.
And I heard that this carnival is really famous because of the UNESCO status. So yeah, that's why I want to see how it's beautiful, how it's big, that's why I'm here.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on our social media on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos for watching.